Junior Santon and beyond. Get ready for the SANTON Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Just bring the heat. Yeah, man. Bring it over here. There's an extension cord. Yeah, there's an extension cord in the corner. Oh, welcome. This is the SANTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM. And as always, available as a podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. If we've never met, my name is Alexander Leitner. This is edition 73, week 26, and it's the last week of June 2022. If you want to get in touch, you can email editor@santontimes.co.za. If you want to connect on social media, you can connect at SANTON Times, and you can also visit the website, www.santontimes.co.za. If you'd like to write a letter, you can send it to P.O. Box. No, I'm joking. I don't even know if we have a P.O. Box. Do we have a P.O. Box? We don't. Okay, we don't have a P.O. Box. Don't worry about that. But you can send in your questions or comments. You're part of this conversation. We want to hear from you, your feedback, your thoughts, as always. Thank you for making the time to listen, especially if you're listening from your bedroom, from the bathroom, the kitchen, your car, or the Greyhound to PE via Craddock. I'm happy to report all is well in Santonland, and what an interesting week it has been. Wow, jam-packed, load shedding. And Zonda Commission reports, and it's very cold, and I'm not quite sure what's worse right now. People complaining about the cold, or people who can't stop talking about the fact that they're not wearing face masks anymore, and that they don't have to sanitize, and that we don't need all these things when we cross the borders. So I'm not quite sure which one is driving you more nuts, but anyway, that's where we're at right now. In the production studio this week, a very special welcome to my new sound engineer, Vincenzo. Okay, he's in the production booth, can't hear him. You're here for an exchange program, is that right? Yeah. Okay, nodding. Okay, he's nodding. Some exchange programs. So, buongiorno, Vincenzo. It's good to have you as part of the team looking after all things sound and making sure that the SANTON Times Hour sounds the way it does. Yeah, I know your English isn't too great, but we'll work on it. And we'll introduce you to everybody. Vincenzo, all the way from Bologna in Italy. Can you believe it? He's doing a bit of a, what would you call it, like a work experience type thing, sort of an exchange program type thing. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. Let me touch on this up front. So last week, I mentioned the Motsepe Foundation is having this youth conference exhibition, virtually and in person, in Santon this week. And we're talking about how this is an initiative to try and help unemployed youth. And I said right at the end of it, well, how are the unemployed youth going to access this online if the data is going to cost them? Because, we know what the cost of data is. If you haven't got uncapped Wi-Fi, you're paying the king's ransom to try and get onto the internet. And I said, are the networks zero rating this? So we weren't sure. So I phoned up the Motsepe Foundation. I had a contact there, and I said, listen, what's the plan? What are you doing around this? And they said, well, there's been discussions, but if you've got any ideas, maybe you can send a few emails or make mention of it. So that's what I did. I got into the emails and I emailed a few companies, and I'm thrilled to report that I got some fantastic feedback from the team at Cell C. I emailed CEO Douglas Craig Stevenson, and he immediately forwarded on that email to his team, and I'm happy to report back that Cell C has come on board to help South Africa's unemployed youth and to get on top of these things and make sure that they can access this conference, which is absolutely fantastic. And then there was also some questions and queries around some snacks and some drinks, etc., etc. So I'm thrilled to report as well that Jerry Thomas, Managing Director at Krispy Kreme South Africa, dropped him an email. He came back to me immediately, said, absolutely, Krispy Kreme is on board. So they're coming to the party as well this week to make sure that everyone's got something to energize them, to sweeten the day even further. So Cell C, Krispy Kreme, well done. And thanks for coming on board with this initiative to help South Africa's youth and I'm sure there's more feedback still coming on that. But yeah, you got to do whatever it takes, man. You've got to come to the party wherever we can to make sure that our future looks a hell of a lot brighter than it does right now with load shedding and all. Coming up on this week's episode, Sandton used to be known as the mink and manure belt, and not too much has changed. I'm going to be finding out a bit more about the game of polo. Then I recently traveled down to Cape Town for a few travel pieces, and I'll be sharing my travel notes with you. And if you're into investing, well, one of the most spectacular multi-million-dollar classic car auctions is coming up this week. I find out what's going under the hammer. And finally, our city parks are hopefully getting some much-needed investment. I'll be chatting to Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo to find out what that means. Headlines are up next, but first, we need to dance ourselves warm with a bit of la-di-da-da-di-da. Vincenzo!
You're listening to the SANDTON Times Hour.
My heart goes la-di-da-da-di-da. Or was it just la-di-da? Well, it's on Mix FM 93.8 FM, and so say Becky Hill and Topic. You tune to the SANDTON Times Hour with or without power, with or without a hot water bottle, and maybe a hot toddy. But who's counting? As promised, it's time to take a look at the headlines for this week. Well, as said, the last of the COVID-19 regulations have been dropped, and many are struggling to adapt while others are over the moon. Over the moon, let me tell you, to not have to wear masks. And I don't know which category you fall into. I know that there's probably a few occasions where I'll probably still wear a mask. I think with traveling, I'll be wearing a mask because I don't know. I don't know how I feel about going through international airports, people coughing all over the place. Anyway, travel and hospitality sectors are especially excited, and I got a couple of comments here during the week. One from Graham Wood at Sun International, who's the group COO, who said, we welcome the news that government will repeal the remaining COVID-19 regulations. The restrictions on gatherings in particular have been onerous on the gaming, hospitality and conferencing and eventing industries, all of those. The relaxation of the regulations will have a positive effect on tourism, and we are hoping for an accelerated recovery in international leisure demand from our global source markets. And then Justin van Wyk, CEO of Big Concerts, put something out as well, and he said this important development sets us on the path to economic recovery. South African music lovers cautious about attending large concerts can now attend live shows with full confidence that the shows will happen and that the environment will be safe. And I'm sure there's more and more comments that will be coming out as the country opens, as the borders open, and it'll be great to also see some tourists again in Sandton. Then we didn't mention this last week, but former President Thabo Mbeki celebrated his 80th birthday right here in Sandton. He had a gala dinner, and it was held at the Sandton Convention Centre. Looked like quite the party. Vincenzo, how did we not get an invite? You weren't here yet, but I was here. But we didn't get an invite to this event. But anyway, happy birthday, former President Thabo Mbeki. Then Sandton's excess office dilemma. In the coming years, we might see old office buildings being turned into residential spaces. And it's already been happening. There's already been a couple of projects in Sandton where they've turned old offices into hotels, old offices into some apartment workspace kind of places. And then, according to some major landlords in Sandton, the hybrid working concept could shape the future of Sandton offices because, yes, there are some people who haven't come back to the office. They're working from home. But then there's not everyone who has an ideal office at home. And, of course, with load shedding, not all of us have a diesel generator humming away in the garden. So some people have to actually come to the office. So they're looking at how do we recreate the office space maybe with less parking but with more other features to kind of create this hybrid workspace. And there's a confidence that things will start moving again in Sandton in terms of people coming back to the office in one way or another. Okay, I think that's enough with the headlines for this week. There's still so much to get through. Next up, let's head down to the Inanda Club for a spot of polo.
Follow the SANDTON Times on social media.
At SANDTON Times.
Thank you, Alex. I love your professionalism and thank you for having me on.
You're listening to the SANDTON Times Hour.
Yeah, so the world has opened up again. All COVID-19 regulations have been dropped and we're all getting used to having to walk around without a mask and without having to sanitize a gazillion times every time we walk around somewhere. And with that, I think the event space is going to be opening up. I think even the floodgates are going to be opening as so many people are looking to do stuff and go somewhere again. And it's already kicked off this weekend, and many might have attended or even seen that the Cell-C Inanda Africa Cup returned to the picturesque Inanda Club, which is situated right in the heart of Sandton this past weekend. And joining me to chat a bit of polo is Craig James, Polo Manager at the Inanda Club. And Craig, I don't know how polo got through the last 2 years. I know you guys have got very much an outdoor sport, but you guys must be thrilled that you're getting to do what you used to do all over again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for having us on the show to have a chat. Polo is an outdoor sport, as you say, and it's a sport for people. People want to be gathering and socializing around it, sipping that glass of champagne, putting on their finest dresses and showing it off. So nice that we can finally start seeing people get back together in one way or another.
Well, I mean, polo does have this image of being a very swanky, very bougie kind of sport. And I'm going to get into that in a few seconds because I did my own little bit of homework on it. But Craig, what makes the Cell-C Inanda Africa Cup different to some of the other cups or challenges that you have when it comes to polo?
Well, I mean, firstly, one of the biggest things we're happy about again is that for the last 2 years of COVID, we actually held the Cell-C Inanda Africa Cup behind closed doors and we didn't have any spectators there. And what's quite sad is what the Africa Cup is inviting our neighboring African countries. So we will and have historically seen teams from Egypt, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana, Angola, Tanzania, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Zambia. These are countries that we invite. What happens and how the Cell-C Inanda Africa Cup works is the South Africa teams will play a weekend before, which would have happened a little while ago, and only the top 4 teams go through to have competed against the African teams that played this weekend. We had teams this weekend come from Angola, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and Kenya, so it was fantastic to have our neighboring countries come back and actually be present.
Well, let's talk about the sport of polo, because I think so many people have heard of it, they know of it, they might know of it because of the Ralph Lauren label, and that's about as far as it goes. But the sport of polo became familiar to me when I managed to get a dinner with the South African polo team. This is all pre-COVID, when they competed against India many months ago, even 2 or 3 years ago. And I sat with the team and they finally explained to me how polo works and how unbelievably expensive it is to run a polo match. And maybe it would be great to get people on board to understand exactly the dynamics of how a polo game works. And then we can go into the costs of running a polo game like this. But maybe for someone who's never attended a polo match, Craig, what are the rules and regulations around a polo match?
So a polo match is a team sport. It's labeled the sport of kings, and as you rightly say, it is a highly expensive sport, but it's not just for kings. And I think an event like the Cell-C Inanda Africa Cup is absolutely showcasing how the transformation and how the accessibility to polo is starting to happen, not just in South Africa, but across the world. A polo match is divided into 4 periods of play. So like a soccer game where you would have 2 halves, in polo you would have a minimum of 4 periods of play. And these periods of play are called a chukka. A chukka is 7.5 minutes of playtime. Now, it doesn't mean that the game is only going to have 4 periods of play of 7.5 minutes. When the whistle gets blown by our 2 mounted umpires or referees that we have on the field, the clock stops. So it can take up to about 15, 25 minutes, depending on the number of infringements or fouls that happen in that particular chukka. And then for each chukka, and this is where the expensive bit comes in, for each chukka, a player would have a fresh horse. You might say, well, Craig, but it's only 7.5 minutes. Surely a horse is a big, powerful animal. Surely it can run for longer than that. But what these horses are doing in that 7.5 minutes of playtime will be probably the equivalent of 6 horse races. You know, there are big runs, big stops. And so we are needing multiple horses. And in polo, we call them ponies. They're not tiny. It's just an old term of endearment, which we've adopted from England, who actually spread polo throughout Africa and all the countries they colonized. And so this is kind of where it starts getting expensive. We've got multiple horses. You're also allowed to play more than one horse in a chukka. So if it's a really competitive match, I, for example, may not just have 4 horses. I might have 8. I might have 2 horses per chukker. The clock's not going to stop for you to change your horse, but you use this horse so that you never ever get your one really good one too tired. It becomes like an impactor on the field. Then just speaking about the specs of the field, just to give people a bit of perspective of why these horses are running so hard, a field is going to be at least 140 meters wide and almost 300 meters long. So it's enormous. It's an enormous space. And to put things in perspective, it's the equivalent of like 6 soccer fields. It's a very big space that we're playing on.
It sounds unbelievable in terms of just, the logistics of it. And then also on top of it, correct me if I'm wrong, the visiting teams also don't each bring their 20 or 30 horses with them. They then have to also source those horses locally. Have I got that right?
Absolutely, yes, you're correct. So the logistics of trying to move horses between countries is just too great. And forget the cost, that implication that you would have. So when we are traveling abroad, when we're traveling to our neighboring countries, very seldom will we take our own horses with us. So these guys will fly in at least a week before the Cup. And so all of last week we've been trying to fish for these horses. So there are a couple of people in and around Johannesburg, South Africa, that run polo school type operations. We have one here at the Inanda Club called City Polo. And for those people that are listening to this, that think that polo is not accessible and want to actually jump on a horse and give it a shot, go and look up City Polo on Facebook or Instagram and get in touch with us. And so these institutions have pools of horses that are available for renting.
Sure.
And we will then go and find enough horses for each player.
Wow, it brings a whole new meaning to all the King's horses and all the King's men, right? To pull together a polo game. And then I think the other expensive bit of equipment that also takes a serious hammering during these games is the mallet. So you've got the rider on the horse, he's got a mallet, and he tries and strikes the ball with this mallet. And I believe sometimes this mallet does get into conflict with other mallets and might end up breaking as well.
So just touching on that, another one of the rules in polo, so we start with safety of the horse and then the rider. This is kind of like the fundamental or cornerstone rule of polo. The line of the ball is then probably your most next important rule to the game, because this will allow safe passage and people can move around. You are allowed to hook a player's mallet, provided that you are on the same side that the player is swinging at the ball, and provided that you're hooking below the shoulder. Now, very often what happens is when the player is in the full swing like that, and I don't know if you've seen a picture of this before, but the mallet will bend completely around, and when it makes contact with another mallet, it does sometimes break. It can be repaired, but once the mallet's been broken like that, the integrity of its balance has then been compromised. So they're not going to be your most competitive mallets. You're probably going to have to put a couple of new ones in the stick bag for the next big match.
So next time I need to go buy a mallet, what am I in for, Craig?
In South Africa, we do produce mallets locally here. A brand new mallet will cost about 1,600 Rand.
Okay.
And then if you start getting fancy and you start importing some mallets out of Argentina, which is like the superpower of polo all over the world, you'll pay anything up to about $285 to $300 for a mallet.
Sure. Well, it's definitely an exciting sport. It's interesting, and the more you find out about it, the more compelling it becomes. So if you're listening, you've never been to a polo match, you've never witnessed any of this happening live, I think it's definitely something to look up, and keep an eye on the Inanda's webpage. I know they're probably going to have quite a few more matches lined up later this year. But Craig James, Polo Manager at the Inanda Club, I thank you for making the time to just reflect on the Celsi Inanda Africa Cup, but also to give us a crash course in the game of Kings. And for those listening, I hope you've enjoyed this first half of the SANDTON Times Hour right here on Mix 93.8 FM. Also available for you to subscribe and download on Apple, Google, and Spotify as a podcast. Stay right where you are. The SANDTON Times Hour continues right after this.
Back for more?
The SANDTON Times Hour continues.
The SANDTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM and Moloko with Sing It Back. And isn't that just an absolute club classic, that? Never gets old. Really enjoy that. Taking us into the second half of the Second Times Hour. And as always, if there is anything that caught your attention during the show, but you didn't manage to grab the details, well, be sure to visit the show notes on www.sandtontimes.co.za. .co.za for detailed breakdown of everything discussed on the show. Also, be sure to check out the social media accounts at SANDTON Times and feel free to engage. Send a tweet, a DM, a voice note, whatever tickles your fancy. Well, you can use the hashtag SANDTON Times Hour as well if you'd like to leave a comment. I'm Alexander Leitner if you've just joined the hour, and I'm about to go into my travel notes. Let me just grab them here. Went down to Cape Town recently, so I'm just going to have a quick look here what I wrote down on these notes. Okay, here we go. So, I was down in Cape Town on a trip, and I was doing a couple of travel stories, which will be up on the website over the next couple of weeks. It was so great to be down in Cape Town again. Hadn't been there since the end of last year. Just on the edge of winter. I mean, let me tell you, a week later, it would have been... I think it would have just been like the Antarctic would have just arrived in Cape Town. You know what Cape Town's like in winter? It's rainy, it's cold, and it's probably not Cape Town in summer. Let's put it that way. So flew down to Cape Town, and for the first time, actually tried out Lift Premium. Probably the only business class offering in the sky at the moment. I mean, now with Kulula and British Airways no longer operational, I think SAA might still do some business class. But anyway, Lift created Lift Premium, which is a business class offering. And let me just take you through it. So they have their own dedicated counter, which is really cool. And you can take some extra weight with you in terms of luggage, which is nice. So if you are going down to Cape Town and you want to carry some extra wine bottles or something with you on the way back, you don't have to sort of leave a couple of extra underpants at home just because you don't have space. So they give you quite a nice allowance in terms of luggage. I think it's something like 46 kilograms of bag allowance, which is really generous. And then you also get access to the Bidvest Lounge at the airport. So if you're not a lounge visitor normally, there's a little bit of a perk. You get to go to the Bidvest Lounge and you get some snacks and drinks before you head onto the plane. But don't overeat or overdrink because once you get to the boarding gate, you zoom past everybody else. They have their own sort of row for premium. And you get to board first. You're one of those people who gets to get onto the plane first. I was sitting in the first row, which is great because you got some extra leg room there. And what they've done is they haven't gotten these huge seats like you would normally have on international flights. Like if you fly Emirates or Qatar, the business class it's like a bed. I mean, it's like a whole pod on its own. It's not that kind of business class, but they've taken the seats and they've created almost like a table in the middle where the middle seat is, or where the middle seat would be. You've got sort of a table between you and the next person. So this is then where they then serve you a newspaper. You get some sparkling water, some still water as everybody else gets onto the plane. Then the entire flight, I mean, they serve you mimosas. You get a Vida e-cafe, so you can enjoy some coffee. They've got a fantastic fruit platter, and they've got a couple of snacks. And then they've got these creams and all kinds of fancy things in the bathroom, which you normally wouldn't have, I suppose, on a normal flight, a domestic flight. Yeah, I mean, they really look after you. I must be quite honest, it was a really great experience. Then as the plane lands, you're obviously the first person who gets to go off. And then when you get to go collect your luggage, it's got a special tag on it. So you're the first luggage that comes out of that. It's sort of like the roundabout of horrors sometimes, because you can stand there for hours waiting for your suitcase or your luggage to come out. And sometimes it doesn't come out and then it comes out somewhere else and you have to try and find it. So at least, you get your luggage first. And yeah, I must say, I really enjoyed the Lift Premium experience. I would definitely do it again. It just kind of changes things up a bit when you're flying down to Cape Town. So the first stop in Cape Town stayed at a boutique hotel in the Winelands, and not something that I normally do. So when I'm down in Cape Town, well, mostly it's always for work, and you end up staying quite centrally in Cape Town. So if you're that kind of person who always stays central Cape Town, you know what I'm talking about, sort of City Bowl, Camps Bay sort of area, Sea Point, Green Point, that sort of perimeter, then you probably never really get to go see the Winelands. And this time I said, well, this time I'm going to actually go have a look at the Winelands, and stayed at the most marvelous boutique hotel called Angala Boutique Hotel. And it shares an entrance with Vrede and Lust. If you don't know where that is, it's right next to Rupert and Rothschild. A really nice little address there. They're sort of slap bang in the middle of Stellenbosch, Paarl, and Franschhoek. So if you're going down to Cape Town and you want to do a bit of wine tasting, well, this is the place to go to. And you kind of meander up a hill. It's really stunning. I mean, it's really a scenic spot. And then you're in this really fabulous sort of private boutique hotel. And it's not like these other boutique hotels. So often you go to a boutique hotel, and I don't know about you, but I generally don't enjoy guest houses and boutique hotels because they can be very intimate, and you end up feeling like you're being watched the whole time. Like, you're one of sort of 3 people living there, and everyone's sort of always on top of you, and they're always asking you, would you like this, would you like that? And sometimes you just want like a bit of breathing space. I know there's a lot of people who enjoy that when, the owner or whatever sits down with you at breakfast and asks you how your day was and what you're going to do. It's not like that. I must say it was very, very enjoyable. It's like a villa on the side of the hills. You overlook the winelands of Franschhoek and Stellenbosch. They've got this wonderful sort of pond swimming pool. So it's one of those eco pools that's a swimming pool, and it also looks a bit like a pond. So it's not sort of your crystal clear blue swimming pool, and it sort of fits into the whole nature of things. But if you want a crystal clear swimming pool, they have that as well. And it's oxygenated, so they've pumped extra oxygen into it, and it's got some supposedly great benefits to your body. As extra oxygen does. And they've also got a sauna, they've got a steam room. So they're very geared towards, if you're very health conscious or if you're very sort of out to relax and have a little bit more than just a hotel stay, well, they've got all those facilities there. The most fabulous rooms with a fireplace, which really came in handy. And you got a little bit of a veranda. You got an outside shower if you enjoy a bit of an outside shower, although it might be a little bit nippy right now. But in summer, it must be fantastic. And then they've got an indoor shower as well with a bath, huge bathrooms. And you've got it's almost like a little kitchenette with a basin, and you've got your coffee, and you've got your tea, and you've got a little mini bar. So a very, very luxurious countryside stay, Angala Boutique Hotel. That was really fabulous. Then headed back to the city centre because at some point, you have meetings. You got to cover what's going on in Cape Town itself. And stayed at the Belmont Mount Nelson. Wow. Let me tell you, an all-time classic. You know it. It's that sort of pink salmon painted building in Cape Town. It's probably the only building that has that color in Cape Town. It's just such an established hotel. As you drive in, you've got these palm trees left and right of you as you go up the driveway, and you're welcomed at the front door. It's all very, very slick, very luxurious, and very attentive staff. Stayed in one of their suites, which was also just absolutely tremendous, but a hotel with so much rich history. I mean, it goes back well over 100 years, and you can just feel that history as you walk the corridors, but yet it's still in such great condition, and it's so well looked after. The suite was, with a lounge and lovely welcome note from the general manager, and little room drops and little sweets and treats and drinks and things as you come back from different excursions. Wonderful, massive bed, and lovely bathroom as well, and just so polished. And I mean, we had a fantastic butler who also had some great anecdotes, which I can't even tell you all about because there was just so much to talk about. And he's really just so attentive as well, and really just looked after us while we were down there. And great breakfast spread in the morning, centrally located, and I must say I thoroughly enjoyed the Belmont Mount Nelson. Open again, it's running beautifully, and it's really something to check out if you're looking for a special stay or something different. I mean, presidents have stayed there, royalties stay there. It really is one of those Cape Town landmarks that you don't want to miss. Then headed around to Constantia. When I say around, you know where Constantia is. It's sort of on the other side of the mountain. And Constantia, just one of those suburbs in Cape Town, if not the suburb in Cape Town. It's just unreal. It has probably got the most premium property in the Western Cape. I mean, incredible wine farms. Some houses that are standing there, if not mansions, are just tremendous. I hadn't stayed in Constantia before and really got a chance to explore that part of Cape Town as well. And stayed at the Villa Lion View. Also, a new hotel that hasn't been around for that long. I think they opened just before the whole global pandemic hit, and they'd also been very popular with overseas guests. It's not a big hotel. Honestly, it's very much a boutique hotel, almost bordering a guest house, but just also super premium, really beautifully put together, clean lines. They've got this wonderful bar as you walk in, which they called an honesty bar. So you basically enjoy your drinks and make notes of it, and then they charge you accordingly. And it's upon you to do the right thing and declare what you've had and what you haven't had. But a massive selection of different spirits. You kind of look out onto the veranda and you've got this valley of Constantia that you look onto. which makes for the most incredible breakfast spot, probably one of the best breakfast spots I've ever seen in Cape Town. If you just stay there for 1 or 2 nights just for the breakfast, you've really experienced something, because the view that you have from up there as the sun rises over Cape Town and Constantia is quite something. And they do a fantastic breakfast spread. I mean, they really go all out, and you're not left wanting. Really great rooms, and I must be quite honest, with all of these properties, the beds have been exceptional. Nothing worse than going somewhere and then having to sleep on a bed that really is, oh no, I mean, it just keeps you up at night. I mean, that is just not a holiday. You literally feel exhausted the next day. All of these places have had exceptional beds. I mean, to the point where I actually started looking at the linen and the mattresses, because I was like, well, I need one of these mattresses and I need some of this linen because it's just so incredible. So a really, really great stay at the Villa Line view, and also, once again, something for somebody who doesn't want a very busy place, who doesn't like big hotels. And that's just a quick highlight of some of the places we visited whilst down in Cape Town. And just to recap those: Angala Boutique Hotel, Belmont Mount Nelson, and Villa Line View. What a fantastic stay, and I can't wait to see what we're going to unearth during our next trip.
Online, on air,
Anywhere, anytime.
this is the SANTON Times Hour. You're listening to the SANTON Times Hour.
So the financial capital of South Africa plays host to one of the most spectacular multi-million-dollar classic car auction events on the 2022 global calendar, when more than 115 exclusive models will go under the hammer amidst a booming international collector market. The July 2nd unreserved and reserved sale, presented by Creative Rides Classic and Collectible Auctions, has been dubbed the Italian Job, named after the classic 1969 Michael Caine movie, by insiders because of the astonishing collection of rare sought-after Italian automobiles on the block. And joining me to let us in on all the details is Kevin Derrick, CEO of Creative Rides. Kevin, this sounds like an absolutely delicious Italian auction you've got lined up.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely fantastic. We're very excited, and we normally don't have as many Italian cars as we've got this time round.
Well, take us through the top line on this auction. What can people expect from this classic car auction?
Well, I think you've got massive amount of variety. That's always fun. So in other words, you've got something for everybody. So you've got some high-end stuff in the form of top-ended Ferraris, some very nice Alphas, some muscle cars. And then you've got at the bottom end, you've got some used, almost like barn find cars, which means obviously they're going to be less expensive, or should I say inexpensive, but you may have to do some work on them and actually get them really going right. And then you've got some middle end. So you've got something ranging from, hypothetically speaking, 40,000 Rand to something that's 3.5 million Rand.
Well, Kevin, let's get into the classic car conversation, because this has been something that's been floating about for many years. But I think in the last 2 years, it's been a very interesting investment opportunity. I was looking at some graph that somebody released, and I can't remember who it was, and I probably should have noted the name, but they were looking at the different investment classes, and they were looking at property, and they were looking at antiques, and there was, everything you can imagine, cryptocurrency, the whole lot. And in the top were classic cars, and I couldn't understand what this absolute fascination and sudden upsurge in the value and in the interest of collecting classic cars is at this point in time.
So bear in mind that if you have a wealth of certain kind, you generally split your wealth into various assets. So you have a pool of assets. Hypothetically, it might be a house, might be a farm, might be your holiday home, it might be shares, it will be cash, it'll be offshore market, current market in country. So your asset wealth will be split over various different things. And very often, very wealthy people also insist that part of their asset portfolio, so to say, includes a portfolio of classic cars. And that's because the classic car market, certain things have really grown amazingly well over a number of years. Now, I use the old example. 2 years ago, we purchased Uncle Louis Kitz's collection. So we had 285 cars. The first auction was about 140 cars. The second auction was another 105 cars. In his collection was Mercedes-Benz's. In this Mercedes-Benz collection, as an example, he collected what we called station wagons. Now, not everybody's cup of tea, but he had literally every single station wagon that Mercedes made from 1955 to basically to 2010. In there was quite a nice, what we call a fintail Mercedes-Benz. In the cubby box of this fintail, we found an invoice that he'd paid for the car 14,000 Rand in 1994. So hypothetically, 26 odd years ago, we sold the car on auction for 600,000 Rand. So I invite any actuarist to have a really good look at that and look at the value growth from 14,000 Rand to 600,000 Rand. That's relatively insane. And this is for a very simple car, although it is a rare car, a very simple type of motor car. So I suppose if you choose right, you can grow that asset very nicely.
Well, Kevin, I mean, that's just one of those great stories. And I remember us talking about that particular auction at the time. And it sounded truly incredible in terms of this collection of cars that had sort of been unearthed. And I think it was, they were all located in Bloemfontein originally. And they were moved to Johannesburg. And then I believe there's an additional value to the fact that there is a complete collection of a particular car or an extended collection of a particular model that is also a very rare occurrence to have them all together, all at the same time. So, Kevin, what are we looking at here in terms of price range based on your previous experience? What do you think this collection or these automobiles might go for, sort of bottom of the range right up to the top?
Look, if you look at the value of cars we've probably got between 50 and 70 million rands worth of cars on our floor. And so we're talking 120 odd cars that are going under the hammer. So depending on what the numbers are at the end of the day, that's what we're kind of looking at. So, but again, like I say, it ranges from anything from 40 odd thousand to 3.5 million for a particular car. Well, it's very broad in terms of the numbers. But the beauty is there's really something for everybody.
Well, you've got an impressive lineup of brands that will be going under the hammer: Ferrari, Alfa, Maserati, Porsche, Rolls-Royce, Bentleys. Literally, the creme de la creme when it comes to cars, and especially some of the models that are coming out. What is the buy-in? What kind of deposit do you have to put down, Kevin, if you want to be part of this particular auction and give it a shot?
So you need to pop onto our website, which is creativerides.co.za. The auction is on the 2nd of July. It'll be held at Monte Casino. And Monte Casino have got a very nice external events environment. So we'll be setting up in that outside environment. And basically go online. You obviously, we've got to meet all the FICA requirements in terms of the Act. But it's going to cost 25,000 Rand as a deposit, which is refundable if you don't purchase anything. And that gives you that ability to basically register, be there on the day, as well as you could register and also do it online. So we found that both work very, very well on the day. And quite often we have half of the people sitting having fun for the day because it's quite a fantastic event to attend. It's lots of fun, very interesting to see and participate in, quite exciting to watch somebody bidding against somebody else for something cool that's on the block. It's a lot of fun. So you've got that, and then you've got people that are online that are also bidding. So it's a very interesting environment to participate in.
Well, if you're interested in classic cars, this is the one to look out for, especially during winter. It's something to heat you up in more ways than one. Kevin Derrick, CEO of Creative Rides, thank you so much for your time. And, there's only one song I want to be stuck in an Italian car with, so I'll be back right after this with some Eros Ramazzotti right here on the SANDTON Times Hour.
Online, on air,
Anywhere, anytime.
this is the SANDTON Times Hour.
Eros Ramazzotti and Tina Turner with Cose della Vita on the SANDTON Times Hour right here on Mix 93.8 FM. And if you're catching this as a podcast, well, you're going to have to Google the song and play it in your own time. As the hour draws to a close, I'm joined by my final guest for this week. It's Jenny Moodley. She's the spokesperson for Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo. And we're going to chat about a R1 billion green campaign partnership with the Johannesburg Parks Alliance. And Jenny, tell me a little bit more about this. I mean, R1 billion, I can buy quite a few succulents. I think last time I went down to the garden shop.
Absolutely. I think it sounds very ambitious, but we are very hopeful that it is very achievable. We strongly believe that our parks can be incubators, not just to make sure that the environmental management is in good hands, but also to grow our local economies, including our township economies. So we put out a call to action through the Johannesburg Park Alliance, and we ask businesses to partner with us to safeguard our parks, to make them more vibrant, and to make them more accessible, and to deal with this long-standing perception and some real issues regarding crime. So we've got partners here today from Vumakamp, Holland, from the Great Steps of Soweto, which is going to be a heritage project. Again, it's just the beginning, the first saplings, if you want to call it, of our partnership with the private sector to get 1 billion rands worth of partnership.
Well, you're meeting in Sandton to have these conversations, and from what I gather, what you've just said, this isn't just money going towards trees and flowers and lawns. This is also money going towards other infrastructure around the parks. You were mentioning security. I'm assuming things like bridges. I know the Mushroom Park in Sandton had a bridge. It got washed away during one of the storms and it never returned again. I'm assuming these are sort of the things that are part of that infrastructure and parks plan?
Quite correct. Right now, these are the first presentations, but it's going to be more than just trees and shrubs and plants. It's about putting in infrastructure without compromising the integrity of these spaces. We strongly believe that as the custodians of these environmental spaces, we anticipate that our urban density levels is going to increase quite substantially. Joburg's carrying capacity is already under a large amount of stress. And so we need to see how we can start reclaiming some of these neglected spaces, or spaces that are not as vibrant as it should be, to keep our residents fit and healthy and happy. And so for us, it's about giving private sector the opportunity to adopt these spaces, create these initiatives, and again, not limited just to greening, but to bring in residents as well as part of a holistic view on reimagining our public open spaces, which are our parks.
Well, Sandton certainly has a good amount of parks, and I'm not going to list all of them now, but there are quite a few. And then also a bit further afield, you've got Zoo Lake, you've got the actual zoo in Johannesburg. And my question to you is, how much demand has there been for these open spaces, especially during a time where a lot of people have been locked up, they've been asked to distance, they've enjoyed being in fresh air environments? Have the parks seen an influx of people wanting to use them?
It's something about the human psyche. When we went into the hard lockdown at the beginning of COVID, a lot of people, there was a form of rebellion. People, no, you will not shut down our parks. And believe it or not, that in itself became a talking point at that stage. And we found that there's been a new revival, a new appreciation for public open spaces now that we are post-COVID, now that our masks are officially, we can put them away. So yes, there has been a whole new revival. People now truly understand the value of open space, especially for holistic family and healthy lifestyles. So we're finding that there has been this revival. We also know that Sandton's very sought after. Our parks are in prime locations. You've got Mushroom Farm Park, which has got a lovely restaurant. And yes, the bridge needs to be replaced. We're talking to Joburg Roads Agency about that. You've got the Innisfree Park, which is off Greyston Drive. And then you've got Sandton Central. So we want to make these parks vibrant. We want to make sure that they basically attract relevant entertainment, that they bring businesses as partners, and we want to see people in a central park style environment. And so that's what we want. We want to get people to adopt these spaces, but also to reimagine what a real park is all about. And so this is a space for innovation. It's going to be some multi-year initiatives, but they're all part of a basket of pilot projects. And we will then monitor these projects. And if we do find that, there's cause for concern, then we also maintain that all these initiatives and partnerships will be done in a very respectful and transparent manner without fear or favor. So, and that's going to be quite a handful, I'm sure, especially in our Sandton area.
Jenny Moodley, we're not going to have more time to go into more of this, even though there's so much to talk about. Thank you for making the time from Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo and this new initiative that is going to see, hopefully, our parks transform and become something that we all look forward to using and enjoying. So, Jenny, thank you so much for making the time to be on the SANDTON Times Hour. And that's it for another episode of the SANDTON Times Hour on Mix 93.8 FM, and as always available as a podcast on Apple, Google and Spotify. As always, if you want to get in touch, you can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za or connect with us on social media @SANDTON Times, or visit the website www.sandtontimes.co.za. Feel free to share your questions and comments. Thank you to all my guests for this week, and also thank you to the team at the SANDTON Times as well as everyone at Mix 93.8 FM. Thank you for listening, and let's connect again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the SANDTON Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.